equipment.
We're recording now. So
Oh, we are.
You guys want to start?
I mean, yeah, we normally kind of leave these things in. It's what makes it fun. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Don't Be So Brewed. Apparently, Scott is trying to imitate me,
said
if you guys could see on there. As you
finger
can
guns.
see right here, I'm always pointing. We're learning a new thing here. I can see what's going on. As you can see,
What does that
that's
say?
me, Dr. B.
Specific chiropractic and don't be so brewed.
Yeah, I wear many hats.
Zimmy.
Lots of hats.
Zimmy. Look.
I'm here with my buddy,
Look,
my bro
I'm on
host,
the screen, man.
Zimmy, as you guys all know him by.
Etches and don't be. We don't have to do intros anymore. We could just be like.
We don't
No, I
have
guess we
to.
do.
Well, I mean, for
There
the
is
audio,
still some audio.
there is still audio. We have to let them know
But
that
people would be missing out so much if
they
were
should just go to YouTube.
Right? I mean, they get to see our new badass background. They get to see our absolutely beautiful faces.
Plus, we have a COVID special of free subscriptions for YouTube through the rest of at least this year.
At
We're
least
going to
this
see what we
year.
can do for next year, but for right now,
We might do a repeat
yeah.
because 2020's been sucking so bad.
Listen, our podcast is so popular that YouTube was like, hey, we want to do a special deal with you. And so they made our subscriptions free. We're kind of a big deal to YouTube. I don't know if you know that. Joe Rogan, ever heard of him? He reaches out to us for advice on what he should do. So I'm just saying. And everyone in here is laughing like that's not true.
No, we're laughing because it is true.
Right. Man, we are totally breaking, like, not drinking. We're having water. Who are
Man,
we?
dude, I don't know. We're like getting
Who
old.
are
We're
we?
getting old, man. I don't know. You know, it's like if I drink now, I think I'll be passed out by the end of this episode.
Well, and I'm kind of doing a thing, so I'm not drinking right now. So
Good
we
for
can get
you,
into
man.
that later, but I'm not drinking right
Good
now.
for you.
It's not like I was having a problem. It's not
Right.
one of those things.
Like the gym opened back up, so I'm trying to get focused and get back in. Right? Is that the game?
Not the fact that the gym opened back up. I just needed something to kind of. I do better with structure. So for me, if I have some sort of structure around what I'm doing, it just works out better for me. I
Man.
just prefer that.
I bet I would do pretty good with structure if I could just get structured.
Yeah, I would believe so. I mean, after our last episode when we were talking to Trainer Tom, if you haven't seen someone that would help you want to feel motivated to get structured,
Oh yeah,
that's
he's-
the guy.
He's pretty much it.
Just sit next to him. I mean, and if nobody's seen the thumbnail, that's what's really going to drive you over to the YouTube page. You guys should go see the
our,
thumbnail.
Our female listeners should increase dramatically after
Yeah, the dad
Brandon's
bod.
crafty work.
What did I call it? The dad Operation
Operation
Dad bod.
Dad Bod, which probably pissed off all kinds of people, including Trainer Tom, because that was like his pet peeve. He didn't like that word.
No. That's what he called that. Remember?
No.
No, that's what he called. He just doesn't like what we consider a dad bod now because
okay.
it's like it's okay to just kind of have what most people would probably consider just kind of mediocre. Like, I don't really have to try. This is just the thing. I don't have to take care of myself. It's
can
cool
see
to
that.
not take care of myself, which I get it. Health-wise, when you're someone that's out there promoting that, you don't want to promote that. So his thing was Operation Dad Bod, but he was like, this is what I think a dad bod should look like. Even though, like he said, he only looked like that for like a day.
Hey man, that picture will
14
last
pounds
forever.
in like a couple hours or something like that.
It's a beautiful thing.
I mean, hey, that's the thing. You're like, I did it at least once, right? Like, I can get myself there.
yeah, no, absolutely.
How much money
know
would
that
it
feeling.
take for you to do something like that? How much money would have to be thrown out there in order for you to go, yeah, I'll do that?
Not much.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind being
$100?
Yeah, I'll do it for $100.
You would do no.
You cover my membership or whatever I got to do, I'll do it. You don't even got to pay me. I'd love to be able to get to that level of rip.
Yeah, Close over here calling bullshit.
Yeah, I know, like what time.
Yeah,
exactly,
he's
right?
like, with what time are you gonna do that with all this other
But
stuff?
you
I'm
talk a
like,
good game, Zimmy, unless somebody's coming here and extracting you and shutting you down for an hour at minimum, it's
Yeah,
not going to
dude.
happen.
and you're not gonna get fed at certain points, kind of like he was talking about. You're gonna cut out certain things, and you know what happens when you do that?
Hey, man,
you get cranky.
if I just get served, if you just put food in front of me, I'll eat it. If I don't have to think about it, even better.
Yeah, but it's literally like chicken and broccoli is what you're gonna eat for every meal all the time, no matter what,
Yeah.
and you're just gonna work out,
Sounds good. I like number 3.
and they're probably gonna make you run.
Okay, I'm out.
I knew I would be able to push a button. I thought for sure he was gonna throw out some ridiculous number. I thought for sure, like, I'd take like $1 million. I'd do it. Because
So-
for me, I know the work that's going to take.
Yeah,
so I
it would
feel
take
like,
a lot of work,
yeah.
but it's not like a death thing. I don't have to like eat a snake or cricket or some crazy shit.
Cricket's
It's not like
crazy.
it's not like Fear Factor. It's like just
Dude,
a
Fear
lot of
Factor-
freaking work,
Fear Factor was the most ridiculous show. You're going to eat pig uterus, and then you're going to crawl through this disgusting guts and all this stuff at the very end.
Yeah.
Through the dark and all this, and you won whatever it was, like $10,000.
Yeah,
it wasn't a
pretty
lot.
nasty shit.
It wasn't a lot.
So we've got a Don't Be So Brewed first today.
We're losing our virginity again.
This
already happened before,
Look,
which, by the way, was one of our most popular episodes. So
look, the cherries.
we just named the title. There we go. The podcast has been named.
The cherries are dropping today.
Whoa.
So
dropping or
today
popping?
we've got our first popping, I guess. Today we've got our first remote guest.
Woo. Dude, we're getting fancy.
Our technology is
Fancy
phenomenal.
britches.
We've got 2 producers out behind the table over there making us look good today.
I mean, they're trying to, allegedly.
They're
I don't
working
know how
with
much
what
you can
they've
do.
got. I mean,
yeah,
you know.
you work with what you got.
So we'd like to welcome our absolutely very first remote call-in, dial-in guest, John Thacher. Welcome, John.
What's up, JT?
Hey, guys.
Welcome to the show.
Nice to see you. Hear you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing your beard. We appreciate it. It's a requirement on this podcast, so we appreciate it.
It's going from here. This is just the start of things, I think.
Right on. So just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, we've all been in quarantine. People have been struggling with it, and varying issues, I guess, have happened. People have been out of work and so forth. But John and I are Facebook friends. We work in the same industry.
Oh, you guys met on the medias.
No, we've met before the medias. The medias
is a
were
cute
kind of
dating
like
profile.
phase 2 of our relationship.
This is a very cute dating profile you're building for you too. Like, keep it going. I like
Right?
it.
So
Flowers coming.
I know, right? They're in the mail.
He's like, I sent him this really sweet card, and he was like, "Aw, that was so thoughtful of you."
Homemade cards.
Right? So John had put up a post a couple days, maybe a week ago almost now, explaining that he had actually gotten COVID-19 coronavirus and was sharing some of his story. Much of his family was impacted, and I wanted to bring him on because, we've heard of people getting it, but we haven't heard of. We've heard of maybe a small handful that have gotten it, and
Well, it's like for me,
survived.
I don't know anyone that knows anyone that got it. Like, I'm just like, hey, do you know anyone? And I just don't know anyone.
But now you do.
And now I do.
You know someone who knows someone that got it.
Finally, I've arrived. I'm there. And again, this
I've actually
is,
heard that so many times already. In the last week, I've heard that a ton of times. I was really surprised by that. I thought more of us would know somebody at this point.
And I think that just goes back to, like, whether you want to get into it too much or not. Like, again, I'd love to get your perspective, but one of my things is, like, I don't come from the place that this is fake. I totally believe that this is real, and I believe that this is something that is dangerous for certain age groups and people with previous health conditions or certain problems that are going on. But I think for the general public, in my opinion, it's just about as lethal as the flu tends to be, from what I've seen, just as the statistics are starting to roll in and getting a little bit more cleaned up after some of the initial freak out. Because I feel like, in my opinion, I think there's certain people that in your life that do what I call overreacting. They just don't know how to handle certain situations, so sometimes they overreact, and I think that's 1,000% what the media did. I wish there was some way to hold them accountable for some of this, honestly.
So tell us what state and city you're in.
So I'm up in upstate New York, Albany, New York.
Okay.
And so I'm not too far away from New York City, but it really...
But it's still 3.5 hours.
Probably,
I mean...
Yeah. And it hit here probably... It's probably on a similar tangent here as it is in Dallas. So it didn't hit real early there. I think we've got, I want to say we've got 1,500 cases so far in Albany. It's a metro of about 1 million, counting Troy and Schenectady. So it's a decent sized metro, and 1,500 cases just is not huge.
Mm-hmm.
God bless.
Thank you.
But we basically, we just got a little unlucky. We quarantined up pretty early. I got my mom set up. My mom's 86. And we quarantined really early because I was worried about taking care of her. I'm the only child in her vicinity. So I knew I was going to be bringing her groceries and her takeout and stopping to visit, that kind of thing. So my wife and I kind of holed up, and we weren't seeing everything. We weren't seeing our own kids. Three of them live in Denver, and one of them lives up in Maine. So it's not like we see them every day anyways. But we really had a tight little bubble that got even tighter when my mom fell and broke her shoulder at the beginning of March.
Good timing.
Yes.
Wow.
I remember going into the hospital, the emergency room with her, and I sat there for 8 hours with my mask on. It was the first time I'd put a mask on. Felt weird. It felt like it's funny because I walked in the hospital, there were workers walking out. Most of them didn't have masks on. And I was like, well, I'm going to see my mom. I can't carry anything in. So it was a challenge. And she was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, broken a couple fingers. And then she went to a rehab center, a nursing home. And this is about April 1st or something.
Okay.
And we got very concerned. And so we kind of rushed them along. About 2 weeks in, she basically, the PT, the head PT at the nursing home, came down with a fever in the middle of his workday.
Ooh.
And so it was just like all these things lining up, and we were kind of freaking out. They did a test on her 3 days later, and it came back negative. She had worked with him the day before, too. So it came back negative. We were pretty happy.
So did they do they did the nasal swab on her? Okay.
Yeah, because New York City was so hot, New York State has a lot of testing. So we have pretty available testing.
Okay.
If you have any exposure in a nursing home, or if you're in a hospital facility, or you're a doctor or nurse, frontline person, you can get tested. And now it's spread out even from there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so she got tested, was negative. So now we got super focused on, okay, how are we going to get her home? And basically the plan was bring her home, and I would nursemaid her and basically live at her house with her until she could actually get herself up and around easily, feed herself, some of that other stuff. And so I guess it was about 7 days after that negative test, we brought her home, and never once really thinking she was going to bring it home with her because she tested negative. So we thought, we're in the clear. We just got to make sure not to bring it to her. Oh boy. Basically, over the week, she got more and more confused, and she was on opiates for the pain. So we kind of chalked it up to that. There was no fever, but she kept getting, she just kept sliding down the hill, getting more and more confused, having the worst time. She wasn't eating much, and it looked bad. And so we got her off the opiates, and the confusion stayed. There was literally no change in the confusion levels. And then we're like, uh-oh. And this is about, 7-8 days later. And I was just running out of steam because I was helping her to the bathroom every 2 to 3 hours. And it was wearing on me. And I was working throughout the week too from her house. So it's, no rest for the weary or the stupid. Basically my brother came out to help me. And so I could get a couple nights off, and he drove out, planned to stay a couple weeks and help out. And we were going to split duties. That next Monday, 10 days after she came home, I came down with a fever. She went to the hospital the next day, got tested positive. I went for a test on Tuesday morning. I tested positive. My wife got tested because she had some symptoms too, much milder. But yeah, she was not positive. She came in negative, but we think she had it. The worst for me is I ended up with 101.5-ish fever that just went on and on and on.
So you couldn't break it, like the Tylenol Advil trick, just nothing would crack it, huh?
Nothing. Like I took Tylenol, and it would be 101.7. I take Tylenol, I check in an hour, 101.7. Absolutely nothing. So after about 3-4 days, I just decided my body wanted to be that temperature.
Yep.
And I kind of let it run.
Yep. It's trying to kill it off.
Yep.
That's what it does. Crank up the heat
and I
inside.
Starved it.
Yep.
That's right. And I starved it. And I was looking for the spike. I was looking for, if it went to 103, 104, I'd go to the hospital, my brother, he was at my mom's house still because we both had it. He hadn't had it. He came down with symptoms about 4 days later. And he spiked a fever. He spiked like 103.5 pretty quickly. And he was miserable and his oxygen dropped right off. So he went to the hospital. So my mom ended up in ICU for, I guess it was just about 17 or 18 days in ICU and another week in the regular hospital. She just got released this past week and she's back at the same nursing home. But unfortunately now there's no risk. There's no risk of catching her anymore. But yeah, the turning point for her, we were literally talking, the doctor called me. We had that long discussion about do not resuscitate and ventilators. And I know if she went on the ventilator, she was not coming back. So we talked about it. And we also talked about the plasma treatment. The Mayo Clinic was running a plasma treatment. She got the plasma treatment. 3 days later, they were taken off her second source of oxygen. And she was on the mend. 10 days later, she was out of the hospital. It was really a miracle.
Wow, that's amazing. I can only imagine having to make that decision. So, and especially while you're also not feeling well, going through all this stuff too. Like, describe a little bit about what you went through. So, like, what did you experience as the fever started to come on? What other things did you experience too?
Well, some of them are kind of crazy. Some of them are. So I got one of those fingertip oximeters to monitor my own oxygen. And I had decided early on that if my oxygen level dropped below at 85% saturation, or if my fever went above 103 and sustained, either one of those sustained, I was going to go into the hospital. I was frankly.
So John, how does this thing work? Is it like a finger prick, or it just kind of clamps over your finger?
No, it's just like the thing that they clamp on the end of your finger at the hospital.
And that'll measure your oxygen levels.
Yep, it'll tell you your oxygen saturation levels. It could tell you a couple things. It'll tell you pulse rate, oxygen saturation is usually what the main ones do. Surprisingly, they're pretty specific too. Like you'd be surprised at what they'll tell you on just trying to keep up with that. But I mean, I haven't heard anyone explain that, but at least he had measures or ways to look at this of like, hey, if I go beyond these borders, I'm going to go do something. Otherwise, you're just kind of quarantining to make sure that you're not spreading and trying to take care of the situation.
Right. Now, looking back, after I've read everything I've read, I probably a little foolish. My levels were my oxygen levels were too low. Normal is like 95 to 98%. And basically, my brother called and he was at 90% even, and they were like, "Get your ass in here." And they checked him in the hospital at 90%. So I spent like 8 days at 88 to 85, right there near the threshold. And it's a weird disease. It felt like like you go up to Denver, and that first day, especially if you drink, you feel
trying to acclimate to less oxygen.
Yeah, it was like that. But it wasn't horrible. I wasn't coughing much. It only got bad if I got up and moved around. So I was sitting really still. I was just down for the count.
I've got a buddy in Denver that was saying that all the symptoms were somewhat related to altitude type illness, and that some of the meds that are used to treat altitude type illness were working.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
That's smart. They probably figured that out though.
Yeah, I mean, the way it attacks the lungs, I feel like that makes sense. But I think for the people that I've seen them struggle the most, or the reports or the stories that have come out about people who are struggling with it was, I had something like this come on, and then being in the hospital or being in a situation, they got something else. They got pneumonia or something with it, and it's like that's two things just going after your lungs. You've got, COVID, and you've got the fluid that's starting to now settle in your lungs, and so it's like, you're struggling big time to be able to get any oxygen in.
The weirdest pneumonia in the world, though, because it doesn't present with, like, normal pneumonia is just a fluid that goes to the bottom of the lungs and kind of sits there. This actually fills up all your alveoli individually. So there's no fluid at the bottom of your lungs. That's why there's no cough. There's no productive cough.
Interesting.
It's very, very strange. But also it really affects your ability to uptake oxygen.
I was about to say, all that fluid's going to do is affect the efficiency of that transfer. So basically he's talking about the little things. The little things that sit inside of your lungs. That's basically where the oxygen goes. The transfer of that is going to go into the bloodstream, and your blood's going to carry that around so that you can use it if there's fluid in there, you're going to mess up with the natural transfer of what's going on with that. I'm sure it probably affects some of the what's called surfactant, or the lining of the lungs itself. That's the stuff that keeps the lungs as lubricated as you can imagine, because you don't want that stuff sticking together. And so I can only imagine on top of itself of creating some massive issues. Were you, so sorry, we kind of interrupted, like what other things?
No, it's okay. So to your point, there was a lot of times where my lungs, like they just kind of felt weird to expand. They were papery almost, is what they felt like. Like the surfactant was clearly damaged to some degree. And even now, like if I've been joking that I'm laughing like an 80-year-old smoking woman, you know, just like
kind of raspy. Yeah.
yeah. I go into cough. I devolve into cough. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it still feels off. It's not right yet, but it's getting better. And I'm just so you know, I was fevered from the April 20th to the 30th. So every day. Then my fever finally broke on the 30th. So I'm almost 3 weeks out from that now, from last symptom. So I'm now able to get plasma, all that good stuff. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people say their lungs feel crinkly, but when you listen to them, there's not fluid in there. People are breathing normally, and the doctors keep saying it's so weird because literally people who have oxygen levels where they should be passed out are sitting and talking on a cell phone 5 minutes before they put them on the ventilator.
That's crazy. So when your brother went in at 90% oxygen, what did they do for him treatment-wise?
So this is kind of why I probably should have gone in. They gave him oxygen right away.
Okay, so just straight up load him.
Yeah, just the one line of oxygen under the nose.
Yep.
And it really helped him. He felt a lot more comfortable. Still beat up, but he was sleeping at night afterwards. I was tossing and turning. It's actually one of the weirdest things for me was the fever dreams. So they were essentially low oxygen fever dreams.
So when you're low on oxygen, your body's running hot and your metabolism of certain things is high. It's similar to what other things that you may take recreationally might do to you, but your body is technically there. So you're hallucinating.
So tell us.
Pretty much.
I'm sure these weren't dreams. I'm sure these were experiences.
They were irritating as crap. They were
so what you're telling us is you were actually taking some DMT, but you were.
I shall remain silent on that. I'll take the fifth on that.
We'll talk about that on the next episode.
Exactly. That would be. We'll return to the 80s for that. But basically. I had this one dream, and the dreams would last multi-nights too. That was part of the crazy thing. I got really fixated on certain things. So at some point, there was this barrel, an oil barrel, and it was cut out on one side. And when it faced down, somehow it was attached to me, like a long, thick rope was attached to me. And if it was facing down, I was lying comfortably. I was sleeping. I was happy. And as soon as the barrel rolled over and faced up, I woke up, I was miserable, I couldn't get comfortable, I couldn't sleep. And I'll be damned, but Stephen Colbert kept rolling the damn barrel around. So I spent the 3 days I was dreaming about Stephen Colbert, I was so pissed at him. And it took me 2 days after that to even get to the point where I could even joke about it. I was so pissed at Stephen Colbert.
So I don't know if you know this.
And he was making jokes.
Oh, and making jokes the whole time. So, man, you're really upset. I don't know if you actually know this about Scott, but Scott is actually a semi-professional dream interpreter. So I'm gonna let him kind of give a little bit of what he might think that was about. I mean, that sounds very specific.
It is. It's actually not wildly uncommon.
Okay.
Stephen Colbert fantasy dreams.
Does he normally have clothes on though?
Well, the deal was when he'd roll you over with the open barrel, you'd be kind of like over the barrel and not feeling good. But when it barrel was standing upright, no problems.
Interesting.
Now, did you notice that when you were like on your back or on on your belly?
Yeah.
Was that when the barrel moved, or?
Yeah, it was connected to the way I was lying, and really, I forgot to mention this. I had this really weird the Wednesday that I actually think I contracted it, and just from counting back, believe it or not, like 95% of the people have a 4.5 to 6 day incubation on this.
Huh.
So they've done some studies of it already.
Mm-hmm.
So I read a study early that said the incubation is 4.5 to 6 days. So 5 days before I came down with symptoms, I bent over to pick something up my mom had dropped. I was walking her to the bathroom. I bent over. I twisted a little bit. I coughed like I had a surprise big cough, and it felt like my rib broke.
Yikes.
And I've broken a rib before, and this felt exactly. I broke a rib playing hockey before, so I know what a broken rib feels like. This felt like a broken rib.
God.
So this is.
That's like when you're like, I'm getting old, but not, right? Like,
dude, I'm telling you, anything with ribs.
No. Yeah.
Because again, it's another thing with your breathing that's going to be affected.
That's right. Oh my God, I sneezed once after that in the next 6 days, and it was excruciating. I stopped coughing. I stopped breathing deep, probably too. Not good for getting this virus either, I'm sure. And it was right where I thought it was maybe the cartilage. Maybe I popped the cartilage between where the floating ribs come into the rib cage proper. It was right on that spot. And the weirdest thing is, though, when I developed the fever, the rib kind of resolved itself after 6 days.
Well, if your body was heating up, I mean, obviously not a fracture by any stretch. If it was heating up to heal itself.
The last rib took like 3 weeks to get to the point where I could even laugh.
Yeah, I was about to say true broken, which is just interesting. And again, doctor, not real doctor, whatever people want to say. There's other things in that area too. I'm thinking your kidneys. I'm thinking some other thing. I'm just trying to think of certain things. I'm like, but to make a sound or a sensation like that is very interesting.
He's a chiropractor. If you haven't been able to guess.
I knew that.
He did his research. I mean, I know a couple things. I'm trying to sound like a complete dumbass.
I mean, he's been reading the news. I mean, he saw your article. I mean, obviously.
I mean, it has been sort of a big day for me. But that's okay.
Been.
We can talk about that later.
Well, yeah. So I've read since that a bunch of folks. There we go. I would come visit you. Next time I'm in Dallas, I'll come in for an adjustment.
Yep.
Oh, I will.
We'll do that. We'll bring you up to the studio. We'll give you the full tour.
That's awesome.
Did you have any Did you have any other issues? Like, did you have any loss of smell, loss of taste? Like, I know there's some other.
I had a minor loss of taste, so I've lost, and it's gone for me still. From what I've read, it actually attacks the olfactory nerve and damages it. And fortunately, the olfactory nerve is a nerve that regenerates, so it's not a nerve. It's not permanent nerve damage.
So the one he's talking about there, Scott, it's in your nose.
Yeah, I know olfactory.
And my daughter, my 23-year-old daughter out in Denver, she actually totally lost everything. So sense of taste and sense of smell gone, and for over 60 days.
So wait a second. So she's in Denver. Hang on though, but she's in Denver. Hasn't been home to Albany at all. Well, and she got it out there.
She went to Miami for spring break.
There you go.
Yeah.
So one of those people. Yep.
So out of curiosity, then, I mean, do you think that this is probably a crazy question? Might have to be a chiropractic answer.
But
do you think you're genetically disposed to this? Like, your brother got it, your daughter got it. Like, do you think that there's something there that might make you more susceptible than others?
I think it's possible. I've read some minor studies about blood typing and proclivity to catch it.
Yeah, they were talking about that a lot.
And I'm A positive, which they say A and B are the number 1 and 2. But then again, it was done in China, and almost everybody in China is either A or B. So by big numbers. So,
I was going to say, I'm A positive too.
Small study. Oh, yeah. And then the other thing is the gender bias thing. Traces back to there's an ACE2 enzyme that men have a lot more of than women, and that's the thing that kind of that's what the coronavirus bonds to, and it kind of ushers it into the cell.
Okay, so gotcha. That makes sense.
And then most recent one I've heard recently is a scientific kind of hypothesis, study analysis that they put out there. It's a scientific abstract, so it's got some validity, where they're positing that the age difference, why it's killing people over 50 more so than anybody below, is the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. That actually gives a little bit of immunity.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. That's
and again,
it's a scientific abstract.
Yeah, with all this stuff, they're kind of just throwing things at and trying to figure out maybe it could be this, maybe it could be that. You know, the Quana pill or whatever, the hell it was. The stuff that you find in tonic water, apparently. That another. I really love my profession because they're just a bunch of dumbasses half the time. Another guy got himself in trouble for being like, basically going on TikTok. It wouldn't be an episode if we didn't mention TikTok. Went on TikTok, made these conspiracy videos, had these like spinning germs all around. It was the most ridiculous video, and he was like, "You don't need to do that. You just need to take this. This is what I'm telling my patient." Like the dumbest stuff that you could ever do to put yourself out there for that. And then I told you about the other guy in Richardson that was doing sublingual vitamin something that he was calling a C19 vaccine, basically, or a C19 shot. I think it was a C19 shot was his labeling of it. He got sued to the moon and back on all the stuff that he was doing because he was charging people like $95
I get
or
it.
something like
and
that.
I understand like wanting to capitalize on the market opportunity without a question. But man, don't be shiesty. You know, I mean, there's legit ways to do it right now.
Yeah, just be Zoom.
Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, yeah. I think their stock went up by like 3 times or something like that.
No, it was like 60 points. Since all this started, yeah, if not a little more than that.
And then I know that they bought a company. They bought another company called Blue Jeans that is another streaming company that had a little bit better security. And so they bought them. They were like, "Oh, $500 million, we'll buy you."
Sounds like an easy security fix.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the money right now.
Purell and Lysol. Yeah, there was the guy that like bought all that stuff up and was going to do that, and then they made him end up giving it out or something like that. I'm like, you dumbass. Like, I get it, but we live in such a weird day and age where everybody's like, "Oh, this is my moment. I'm going to do it. I'm going to, sell some Purell with Tiger King stickers on it."
So after having gone through this and knowing what you know, I mean, how do you feel about masks and gloves and everything that they're trying to enforce? I mean, obviously you don't need them now, but for most of us, gloves are foolish, right?
People don't know how to use them is the first damn problem.
Nobody's talking about sanitizing their phones every night, and they're not. They're touching them with their gloves, they're touching them with their hands. Then they touch their face and they pull their mask off.
Well, that's wearing your damn gloves in your car and your mask. Like, what the hell are you protecting yourself from? Like,
I saw a guy the other day driving in his truck with a mask on and the windows down. I mean, I know it's allergy in the truck,
but not.
But give me a break,
Maybe he farted. I mean, come on, now you got to think of all the possibilities here. I mean,
I mean, it was a single cab. I mean, it could have been intense.
Listen, I'm just saying. I agree with you. I feel like there's some people coming out. There's even leaders, public figures, doctors. Like, it's not really doing a lot for you unless you have like the high end mask. Like, it's not doing a whole lot for you.
I think the mask. I think it's pretty established. I think the mask. Like, think of it this way. There's been those videos going around like, "Oh, the mask will make you sicker." It's like, come on. We know about germ theory. It's basic, 7th grade science, right? We know that. We know that doctors wear masks all day long in surgery. There's a reason they do that, because they used to kill people when they didn't do that. And so mask wearing, it's one of those things, like hospitals have stayed open. 2/3 of hospital employees, like in the Boston system, I was reading an article, have stayed open the whole time. And the way they stayed open and they haven't killed each other and they haven't passed it all around is they wear masks, they wash their hands, they submit to screening. So people ask them questions every day when they walk in.
Yep.
And they keep some distance when they're not masked, and they practice good basic hygiene.
I was going to say, I had to go to the hospital yesterday. So I submitted myself to all that stuff. Yeah, they took my temperature. Have you crapped your pants lately? Have you had any muscle soreness? Have you had any... she didn't say crap my pants. Sorry, let me be specific. Have you had any diarrhea lately? I'm like, no, not since McDonald's. I'm kidding.
Dude, I went to the dentist today, and they were asking me all the questions, and I was sitting there like...
Certain places are putting protocols in place.
And I respect that, but I'm like, how about you? How many people you run into? How many people said, yeah, you know what? I have been out of the country. Like, do you have to go home as the questioner right after that happens?
I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I would hope that there's systems in place for that stuff too. But I was going to say there was a funny joke that my wife shared with me, and I thought was funny. Since we're talking about masks, it was a meme, and it said, "Listen, if a fart can make its way through underwear and denim, what do you think that mask is going to do for you?" Sorry, she told me that, and I was like, "That is fantastic."
That's hashtag facts right there.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I'm actually in a really good spot with it. Like, I've lost all my kind of political affiliations around this thing. The virus beat the crap out of me. I walked out of it so humbled. You know, I spent a couple nights really thinking to myself, should I write a letter to all my loved ones? What kind of shape is my will in? Is it really up to date? I haven't looked at it in a while.
Mm-hmm. Right? So you were there.
I was there, and I'm telling you, that virus beat me. It got really personified for me. It was really a personal struggle between me and the virus beat me. And I'm not one to lose or admit defeat very easily.
I don't think it beat you. I think it knocked you down, but I think you beat it if you're sitting here talking to us now.
That's right, but it humbled me pretty good before it left.
Yeah.
And I really walked out like I'm okay with anybody's choices. You know, if somebody doesn't want to wear a mask, it's fine. I just need you to respect my choice, which is to keep my family away from you. Mm-hmm. You know, to keep the people who haven't gotten it away from you, because it's a choice that's endangering my family.
Yep.
And you know, it's like it's just common courtesy, really. And we have a lot of it. We used to have a lot of it in the States, and it's kind of slipped a bit, I think, unfortunately. And I just don't want to be the person who continues it slipping. I think I really just came out thinking, I don't want anybody else to suffer with this thing. This sucks. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. You know, watching my mom go through it at 86, I don't want anybody's mom to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think really the differences in opinions, and part of the reason I made my post was I think the differences in opinions is spreading across the country in little pockets. So some communities have deep experience with it. Some communities have almost no experience with it. And I'm actually really, really scared for the more rural communities where the hospitals, you know, I was listening to the Texas Commissioner of Agriculture, who's actually, because it's Texas, he's in charge of all the rural hospitals as well. I loved his explanation. It's like, yeah, you know, it just goes in my division. It seemed to make sense. So he's got like 246 hospitals around Texas. And he says, you know, 30% of them are $1 million to spend away from bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So if this hits in any little pocket, it could kill the local hospital systems. And many of them are just underfunded and understaffed, and they don't have the resources. Plastered on your forehead. So yeah, that's what I really worry about. That's what I worry about. Is I just worry about small communities getting this. We've got a long-time summer camp up in the Adirondacks. The town had the smallest school in the state of New York. 13 students in the school from first grade through 12th grade.
Wow.
One teacher teaching all 12 grades.
You guys got to get
classical.
With it, man.
Oh my God! But it's a lovely community.
So, you know? So where in Albany are you exactly?
I'm in Guilderland now. I live in Guilderland. I grew up in Delmar.
Okay.
And my mom still lives in Delmar, so I live in Guilderland now.
So I went to school out in Cobleskill.
Oh, I know Cobleskill well. SUNY Cobleskill.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I went to SUNY Albany.
Right on.
So, and Empire State too. I finished up at Empire State after a little month. That was back in the 80s, you know. So a little too much partying going on.
I get it. But School has to build his reputation somehow.
That's right. That's right. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I was pissed at the Roosevelts for a long time too. They got my dreams. I was watching the Roosevelts PBS special. and they had an empty chair. There was a picture of an empty chair and an empty bed. And during the Depression, I'm like, all these people camping out. You can't take somebody in, you lousy so-and-sos. And I got really irritated with them for days. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So it was like these crazy dreams, and then you get like asphyxiated on because you remembered everything that happened in it.
Yeah, and I also, it's funny, at the same time, I got fixated on kind of helping people too. Like, it was really a thought that pulled me through as I started to think, after this is over, I'm going to give plasma. And then I think about that and I read about it, on my phone, I'd sit there. And then I would have other things where I got like, okay, I'm going to start helping in a food bank or a soup kitchen. I'm going to cook barbecue for a soup kitchen once a week. I'm going to cook like 4 or 5 briskets every week. I'm going to bring them down to the soup kitchen and just help out.
You can always do that down here if you feel the need. I mean, anytime.
No kidding, right? Right. So now, but yeah, it's crazy. It helped. It really helped me kind of battle the thing.
So this has been one of those life events that it's made you rethink things. Like, you're like, look, I'm really fortunate. How do I want my end of days to be? How do I want to be remembered? How do I want to have impact? What's my legacy?
Yeah, there's definitely that, and there's definitely a real desire to find a way to get us back to some semblance of normal, because humans are not designed to live like we're living right now.
Nope.
We are communal critters, and we just don't tolerate this very well. It's going to get worse and worse and worse on the emotional level, on the spiritual level. So we have to find ways to be together again, to see live music. Like, I'm dying without live music. I probably go to 25 to 50 shows a year.
So our producer, who's also a partner in our Support Local Texas movement, if you can get over this right there, owns a production company, and he does lots of festivals and events and things like that. And he's been pretty much shut down since January, Chris? I mean, like, unbelievable to even think, and it, we've spoken about this on other podcasts, but yes, there's going to be human impact as far as health goes, but the economic impact that this thing is having,
and social impact of what he's talking about, of like how that affects people socially. And
it's crazy, right? Because you think about it and it's like, yeah, we've been in quarantine now, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that. And it's like, wow, within 3 months, so much could change so rapidly that could have such an incredible lasting impact. And it's just a blip in the timeline of life and evolution. But golly, I mean, like, even in work, right? We constantly talk about disruption. Like, who's going to be the disruptor, right? What industry is going to come in and change everything? Like, who's the Uber of XYZ industry? But we never sat there thinking, what could disease or, impact like that have, virus, pandemic, all that on disruption, because it's having it. And it's affecting all businesses. This isn't like just
and it's
some
also
new
the
player came in.
Well, and it's also the government's.
Is this government disruption?
I think there's a little bit of a component of this. I mean, listen, I think it's, oh, hey, here's an opportunity here. Whoa.
Finally flipped, you guys. Sorry about that.
I think there's just a little, and listen, this is just from some other podcasts I've listened to and some other things that and I think there's this, like, listen, in Texas, we're very fortunate. It's one of those things where we're opening back up. We're trying to get back to normal. Restaurants are opening up. Gyms just opened back up this week. We're trying to get back to normal. But people in California are getting pissed because they just got extended another 3 months. So, like, we're going to extend it out another 3 months. And they're like, again, and I don't know all the statistics for that area and what's going on, but they're like, what's going on right now doesn't necessarily push that we should be doing that. Should there be certain things in place? Should people who are at a higher risk potentially not go out? Yes. Should there be certain things in place, and are there going to be certain risks? Yes. But there has to be a balance of that, because this is not living, almost like you said. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to just be completely ridiculous. Like, I get it for you, JT. It was like, you got it. It happened. Like, it's real and it affects people. But there's another aspect of that, of the government has this weird power right now to be able to be running things. And it seems very weird to me that it's like, if we would have said that last year that this was going to be happening next year, you would have said everyone was full of crap. Like, there's no way you could close down everything, close down basketball, close down sports, close down concerts.
You
there's
put life
no
on
way.
pause.
Yeah. There's no way you would have thought like this could happen. And now we're slowly trying to come back. And I know everybody's like, do you think they're going to make us go back? And I'm like, I don't think you're going to be able to make people go back. Like, I know that's a very weird thing to say, but I don't think you're going to be able to push people back as now they're starting to come back out.
Well, even here, like, you know, restaurants have opened 25%, then 50%. Like, you know, we went out last night actually, with the family. There were literally one other family in the place we went to.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. B and I went out. I mean, there was like nobody there. So
that place was okay, actually. That was one of the busier places that I've seen. That one wasn't overly packed.
Bar.
Yeah,
and those people weren't 6 feet apart.
No,
we were from them. But
we don't have to say that place because I secretly love that place now with their to-go margaritas are pretty good.
Their in-house ones weren't bad either.
Yeah,
that's like the old days. When I was growing up, we had Go Cups all over Georgia, so we would walk out of one bar and go to another with a drink.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to slam your drink to go to another bar.
Well, and now like it's basically changed towards that a little bit with their like, hey, we got to be able to still sell alcohol. I guess it's got to be to go. So this is how we're going to do it. So I'm not going to say the place. You're not supposed to get the drinks mixed. We may or may not have already gotten the drinks mixed. And by we, I mean the first person who found out like a couple weeks ago was me. And so at that point I was like, well, I'm going to keep bringing you business if you're going to pre-mix my drink. Allegedly. I don't know for sure. I'm not really, it wasn't really clear to me.
Just like COVID deaths, if we get in an accident in Texas drinking and driving, it will be a text-related accident.
Yep.
It'll have nothing to do with the alcohol that's found in the car because they don't want us texting while we're driving.
It's true.
That's right.
It's true. And again, like I've heard some of these other people say, like any agenda now feels like it could be pushed and pushed really hard. Like, nope, we're not driving anymore. Too many people die from cars. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I feel like we are literally in a world full of ridiculousness right now that we're in such an unknown right now. It's like at any point in time, like what other stuff are they going to be able to take or to be able to implement? And it's, it's very weird. We talked about this last episode about people not wanting to go back to work because on unemployment, they're paying me extra. I'm making more than what I was making.
Right.
And they're talking about extending that. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a proper episode without TikTok and conspiracy theories.
Yep, TikTok.
But, you start to look at all this and it's like, okay, so they're doing a slow open, on things, but they're also paying these benefits out through the end of July, potentially longer. So they could control exactly what happens when based on...
this is socialism, right?
Well, based on what they do with the people, right? I mean, so... a business reopens if they start to get busy, but they can't get labor because the labor is getting more than any small business could afford to pay.
Which seems so ridiculous, but it's like, I don't know. I've had some patients they're going back to work. They were excited. They're like, hey, things are coming back to normal.
So have things in Albany started opening back up yet, or is it kind of...
We actually opened, the Albany region opened today.
Okay.
So to phase one of the opening. It's kind of like it's a little limited manufacturing.
I was about to say, what's y'all's phase one? I know everybody's phase one was way different.
It's pretty limited.
Our phase one was like phase 4 for California or something like that. I think I heard someone say.
Right. That's probably right for us too. I think local shops could come back online too.
Okay.
So
was it a
limited? I think it's well thought out. I think they're taking it step by step. New York is a place of commerce. We really, it's funny because I spent a year working down in Dallas, literally at the Crescent, and it basically there's a lot of parallels between New York and especially Dallas or Houston. The people are pretty fast talking in all those locations, especially for a southern town, and the thinking is pretty quick, and it's all about commerce. And so New York doesn't like being closed. I've never seen Times Square like it is now. It's just weird.
It's crazy to me. Some of the pictures and some of the things that you see, it just feels so weird.
It's just sad. I lived in New York City for probably 10 years too, and it's I really identify with that city, and it's taken a lot of blows. But it comes back. It's a great place to be. And it'll come back again. It's just going to be different. For me, I think my primary message is everything I read says wearing masks is going to kill this thing off. And that's probably the number one is wear a mask. It's not that big a deal. We all wear seatbelts. I was around when that went in. Everybody, all of us grumbled about that more than we're grumbling about masks now. And we got used to it. And now, because, the bottom line is we all had friends who at some point went driving and their passenger, they hit a rock wall and their passenger exited through the front window, and that stopped happening after everybody put their seatbelt on.
So how do you look at this? Like, I look at China, where people kind of very frequently, where people very frequently wear masks, right? I mean, it's not uncommonplace over there, and they still got this.
Yeah, I think China, the density in China is way worse than New York. I think a better analogy is South Korea. South Korea is a very mask-driven place, and the density is pretty high. It's pretty close to New York and Seoul, and they have avoided the deaths. They just don't have them because people went to masks right away. That was the one thing, and they did contact tracing. They did that other stuff, and I think that's going to help once we kind of get it under control a little bit, because basically everywhere that's done that has had some success at it. I actually have a lot of friends in Sweden. My kids all played hockey, and they did a hockey exchange with Sweden. And so I have a bunch of friends over there, and it's a very different culture than ours. People are really concerned about everybody. It's a very socialist culture. It makes us not look socialist at all. And basically, they decided to stay open through the whole thing. And I think in the old days, they may have gotten away with it because they actually do care enough about everybody else. Like, they care about their neighbors. They're really unified about, it's probably like America right after World War II or something. Everybody cared about their neighbors and everybody looked out for their neighbors. And kid broke a window, he got reported by any neighbor to the parent, no division really, everybody kind of on the same page. But they've got a lot of migrants. They've had about 1 million migrants in the last 5 years or so. And the COVID swept through those communities really badly. And most of my friends are really, they really regret that. They feel like it's horrible, like they're not doing enough to help them out. It's just a different kind of community. They're used to being unified like that. But they've stayed open, So I think you can stay open. They've been sane about it too. They've limited the number of people in the shops. People look out for each other.
Yeah, I think when you hear stay open, it's like, oh, it must just be a free-for-all. It's like, no, they're still doing certain things. I don't know about Iowa. I know Iowa is the state that I heard that they never locked down.
I don't know. I still kind of find it kind of amazing that, the United States, like, it's just kind of fascinating that from executive level at the president's office, they never said, hey, this is what's going to happen, and that it did go down to local municipalities. And then, state governments were like, wait a second, you guys aren't making the rules. We're making the rules. I'm just floored. Absolutely freaking floored. I felt like the government just said, hey, you know what? This is a case-by-case issue, and when you've got a case, you got to deal with it.
It's basically, I think my one big, massive issue is that anything out there that would promote actually building up your own body's internal immune system has not been driven as something that's important. Like, hey, let's talk about some things that can support your immune system. Let's talk about something like, let's give you some things that you can do with that. There really hasn't been a lot of that. And based off of what I've seen, if you post any stuff like that, like talking about intravenous vitamin C, there's a lot of different things that you could do immune boosting wise. We're not trying to say that this is what does this. We're just trying to say, hey, your body's built as a machine to be able to fight these things off. It's part of why you got a fever. It was part of, listen, there's internal workings that are meant to try to be able to fight these things off. It's why, I've never heard of somebody having a fever that sat like that without going up and down, just constant. But it's like, it shows you severity course of this, but that his body was able to do that, which that's how I look at it as, hey, that's an amazing thing that your body was able to just, hey, we're going to crank the heat up. We're going to have this sit here. You're going to have weird dreams for a couple days, but we'll come out of this. But I think it's very weird that the things that will promote and keep you healthy those things aren't important. And even people being able to stay active, those things weren't considered essential.
Right.
But no offense, McDonald's was. That place is essential. Like, it's just a very
Walmart.
weird. It's just a very weird mixed up thing, in my opinion. Like, I think there are things out there that could help people, but apparently we have to go outside of the country to try to get that stuff. I mean, that's the big push for stem cells right now.
I find it fascinating that the place that we most went to get healthy, aka the gym, was deemed one of the places you don't want to go to.
That's what I'm
because you
saying.
can get
Those are
sick,
nope,
you know?
can't go there.
What?
And even with the opening up right now, it's very strange. Got to wear gloves. Got to do like it's just. I don't know. It's very weird. People don't know how to properly use gloves. Is my one issue with gloves.
No.
Oh, I got the best
the
one.
doctors take them on and off like 400 times a day.
Yeah.
That's what they don't understand. Is that's why they go through all those gloves. Is because once I've done this, these are no good anymore.
Yeah.
And I have to throw them out. You're over here fiddling with your phone and doing all this crap and getting in your car and touching things. And then you're going to, whip those off and set them over there, eventually throw them away. I'm like, you touched your purse, you touched your keys, you touched your phone, you touched all that stuff.
we
You touched your mask and probably touched your own damn face with those gloves.
We needed to do a Darwin Awards for COVID, right? I mean, how many people are sneezing into their elbow and then they're like elbow pumping people now, right? It's
Listen, it's gonna be very interesting.
And then they don't want to touch their face. So what are they doing, right?
Hey, listen. And Texas is about to get bigger. I'm telling you, everybody's talking about from California saying, "Hey, we're going to Texas." So we're gonna have a video coming out. Scott and I are gonna do a benefits or
From the
potentially
farm.
ways that you should reasons. He wants to go with the angle of like reasons you shouldn't come to Texas. I want to be like, "Hey, you always talk about this." Then we kind of take them through it. I think it would be a funny angle because I listen to all these other podcasts and I hear them talk about it all the time. They're just like, man, what do we got to do? Like, if we left, we're all leaving and we're all going and this is what we're doing. I'm like, hey, man, come. We got a studio for you right here.
We'll take Tesla, but everyone else has to go through formal interview process.
That guy, is he still gonna come? I know they've made an agreement and they got this stuff set up, but I feel like I still feel like he's like, I'm gonna go anyway.
He could throw some weight around. He could do whatever the heck he wants.
He did. He
Dude's
said, hey, we're
crazy.
opening up, and he said, arrest me. And they were like, well, and he goes, well, I'm gonna leave. And they were like, all right, hold on. Let us just put some certain restraints and you're good. Yeah, it was like, okay, yes.
Well, there was a gym. I read
Yes,
an article.
Mr. Musk, we will bend the knee to you.
Right. I read an article. I don't know if it was California or not, but a gym that said, screw it, we're opening. And they said the thing that was most fascinating to them is the police did come out, but they just wanted to make sure everybody was safe. And they said, just make sure everybody's safe. And
That's
they
what
left.
I'm
They
saying.
didn't
There's
get
no
fined.
enforceableness of if you stayed open. Yeah, they can't
It's
do
not
anything.
law, like Chris is saying.
And they don't, and it's suggested, and they don't want to fine you. We're sending out $1,200 to people to try to help them, and I'm going to fine you $1,000. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Why would you do that? And they're not doing it. They're not finding anyone. Like, it stayed free, but it's just so ridiculous.
The first bar that opens up doesn't require masks and lets 500 people in, way past fire marshal warning. There's going to be an outbreak. And if you kill patrons, it's not good for business. And so that's going to modify behavior pretty quickly.
It's going to suck, but something's going to happen.
Well, and so people are going to want to stay. They want to keep their customers alive so they come back and pay again.
Yeah.
So businesses can be responsible.
Well, they also don't want to get sued. And that's why folks are a little slow to open on things. I mean, and I get that completely.
Well, and here's the thing I've been wondering for a while now. Nobody talks about it either. We've got a whole population that's low risk. Why aren't we opening with the under 40-year-olds?
That's a really good point.
Listen, this is what I've said the whole time. This group, you're fine. Go back to what you're doing. This group, we're going to recommend that you don't. But if you do, that's at your own risk. These groups, immunocompromised and people over this age, don't go anywhere. We are recommending that you stay. Let other people take care of you. Yeah. What do I know?
And then we could protect a much smaller slice of society.
No, you're right.
The $1,200 would go a lot farther if we were just protecting people. A lot of people over 65 are retired already.
Yeah.
So you get that whole group, and there's a lot of people on disability already who are immunocompromised, and so we've got some safety nets in place for them already. Let's open back up. I mean, if you're going to open bars and restaurants up, check the ID for under 35, something like that.
I like that. I like it a lot.
Not bad,
Listen,
right?
they're coming
Not
out with
bad.
ways to track us too through our phone. Hey, you gotta have a thing that
Yeah,
certifies that you're whatever. I'm like, you can get that shit out of here.
Get that chip out. We're coming up on time.
Yep. Yes, sir, we are. JT, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks,
We really
guys.
appreciate it.
Any closing
appreciate
thoughts
you,
or any final words you want to?
Yeah, what do you want to
Say
leave
to
everybody
everybody.
with?
Just avoid getting it. Don't get it, man. Don't. Everybody, you can hear me. Do what you can to not get it. And really, it's just a mask and washing your hands is really what it comes down to, personally.
It's a good message. Wash your hands. Wear a mask.
All right, Scotty,
Yeah, even
what
if
you
we
got?
just wash our hands.
That's right. All right, I got to come up with some corny joke here. Hang on a second. This is kind of
Oh
our
my gosh, he doesn't even
thing. No,
have
I've got
one.
it. I've got
okay,
it. I've
okay,
got
okay.
it.
We'll
Oh,
see.
crap. Advertisements? Golly.
Please, please, if it's not funny, don't laugh. Don't feed this thing. That's part of the, if they're bad, we just let it be bad. And unfortunately, I have to approve the message is kind of how this thing
Sometimes.
closes out. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I guess I'll continue to stall while Scott
No, I'm
has.
good. I got it.
Oh,
Are
okay.
you ready?
He's like,
These are dad jokes. I mean, so they're meant to be
what are you doing? Getting ready for a damn
outstandingly
Are you
hilarious.
getting ready for a boxing match over here? He's like, ugh,
Let me crack my neck.
let me get this thing loosened up so we can.
Let me
let's go.
just
I got my
self-adjust
jokes.
over
Let's
here.
go.
Let me just self-adjust.
Did you just go all New
You
York on
know,
us?
people say they pick their nose, but I feel like I was just born with mine.
That is the worst one that you've had this entire time. Is that the only one that you have?
Oh no, there's a couple dozen here.
Okay, just one more. I'm not gonna.
It's also
approve
pretty
that
bad.
message.
I mean, I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's impossible to put
it's
down.
impossible to put down. Guys,
Poor.
I'm Dr. Brandon Brown, and unfortunately, I have to approve this message.
That's why we do this at the end.
Goodbye, folks.
Thank you, John.
Oh my god.
Thank you, guys.
That was
Awesome job.
Painful.
Totally. We'll probably have this out in the next couple of days, and I'll
that
shoot
was
you a
totally
note.
painful.
I'll tag you on it, and we'll rock and roll.
Yeah, no, I'll start listening. I listened to 3 or 4 episodes already. It's pretty funny.
I'm sorry.
Hey, thanks, man. Make sure you listen to the first one. It's still my favorite.
Yeah, I
Still
did
my
listen to the first one.
yeah,
the
still my
first one's
favorite
the
till this
best.
day. And there should be, I don't know what episode it is, but look for the one in the description that talks about my friend Milo Draven. Watch one of those.
Okay.
Oh, he's a hoot.
They're hella entertaining. He's a character, I'll put it that way.
Totally.
Yeah, I'll definitely throw you guys some likes. I was listening on Spotify earlier.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
brother. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, John.
Yeah, good job. Thanks for the platform, too. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
thanks, man.
Take it easy. Feel
Yeah,
good.
Take it easy. Be safe.
You too.